Okay, here in today's video, we are just going to take a look at a few problems at a time, remembering, okay, when I see exponents, I have rules that I need to apply. And what are those rules? So simplify, your answer should contain only positive exponents. That means there should not be any negative exponents and there should not be any exponents to the 0 power. So look here at number 1 and what's happening? Yeah, this is all multiplication. So really we're just using remember the product rule. Product rule says we start with coefficients and we multiply them. Then we look for like bases and we keep the like base. We add the exponents. So coefficients, I have a 2 and a 3. Well, 2 times 3 is 6. My first variable here in alphabetical order would be a u. So if I take my u, I'm going to add the 2 and the 2. So 2 and 2 is 4, so I have u to the 4th. And then I look at my v. V to the 0 power. I don't have anything to combine that with because there's not another v here. And remember, anything to the 0 power is 1. So I'm just going to go ahead and cross that out. So my final answer here would just be 6u to the 4th. Number 2. First thing I do is I look. I'm like, okay, what operations are happening? What do I need to do? And again, I see it's all multiplication, which means I'm just going to apply the product rule. I start by multiplying my coefficients. So I look in my first term here. This has that magic -1. So I have -1 times -4, which is positive 4. I look at that x to the 3rd and x to the 3rd. I'm going to add those. 3 and 3 is 6. Then I see this y to the 0. Well, y to the 0 is the same as 1, so I'm just going to put a line through that because I do not need that variable of y anymore. Number 3. Ooh, a few more problems here. Look at that, a little longer. But if you notice, everything here is still multiplication, which means, again, I'm just applying that product rule. So I start with my coefficients. -4, -4, -4. Well, -4 times -4 is positive 16, and positive 16 times -4, well, that would be -64. Then I focus on those variables. I see that I have an x, so I'm going to keep the base, x. I have a -1. I have x to the 0. Well, I'm going to go ahead. I see that. I don't need that x to the 0. I have -1 and a 3. Well, -1 and 3 makes 2 when I add those. So x to the 2nd. Then I'm going to look at my y's. I see I have 3 of those. Keep the base of y to the 0. Well, I'm not going to need that. But I do have a 3 and, that's that magic 1. I have a 3 and a 1. When I combine those, I would have y to the 4th power. All right, number 4 here. Again, multiplication. Means we're just applying the product rule. I look at my coefficients, -3, -4, multiply those together, and I have 12. I'm going to look at those variables, alphabetical order. I'm going to start with m. I have a -3 and a 3. That would be -3 and 3. When I add, that would be m to the 0. Okay, I already know I'm going to have to rewrite this, but that's okay. I'm going to look at my n's next. N to the -3 and n to the 4th. -3 and 4 add to make 1. So when I rewrite this, I'm not going to need the m to the 0, and I'm not going to write the 1. So my final answer would just be 12n. Number 5 here. Again, product rule. So -4 times 2. Well, -4 times 2 is -8. I have an x to the 3rd. There's nothing else to combine x to the 3rd with, so I'm just going to rewrite x to the 3rd. And then I have y to the -1, and there's nothing to combine it with, so I'm going to write y to the -1. Now remember, our instructions said no negatives. So that means we're going to need a fraction bar. And anything that has a negative exponent. I know you're thinking, but there's a -8. That is not an exponent. The exponent of that 8 is positive 1. The exponent needs to be negative, not the actual number, not the actual fraction. So the -8 stays right where it's at. X to the 3rd, that's a positive, stays right where it's at. But the y to the -1, we're going to move that to the denominator. Remember, we cross that fraction line, we cross that bar, we become a positive. So negative 8x to the third stays in the numerator. My denominator now has y. And we could write y to the 1. Remember, we're simplifying. So y to the 1 goes to the bottom, and I'm just going to write it as 1. Number 6. Oh, no longer multiplication. This is now going to be your powers rule. Remember, we talk about powers, we like to use the word distribute. Because distribute reminds me that everybody is going to be multiplied. So the outside exponent is going to work its way in, and it's going to multiply by everything. You're like, wait a second, that's a 0. Okay, so I'd have x to the 0, because 0 times 3 is 0. I'd have y to the 0, because 4 times 0 is 0. But I can't leave it that way. Remember, what is x to the 0 and y to the 0 equivalent to? Really, this is just saying 1 times 1. So my final answer here would just be simply 1. Number 7, I have a squared outside negative 2. Outside, that tells me powers rule again. So this negative 2 is going to come inside, and that's going to be a to the negative 4. We multiply. Negative, it needs to be positive. I'm going to create that fraction bar, and I'm going to move that a to the 4th to the bottom, to the denominator. Now, we can't just leave the numerator up there with nothing in there. Remember, we're dividing it out. When we divide out or cancel out, we would have a 1 left in our numerator. All right, number 8. This negative 2 is going to come all the way into our parentheses. There's actually 2 things that we need, 2 exponents instead we need to multiply by. So I'm going to have 4 to the negative 2, and I'm going to have y to the negative 2. Again, those negatives not going to work. We're going to go ahead and set that up, and we're going to move it. Now they both have a negative, which means they're both going to move to the denominator. So this 4 also needs to go. So this would be 4 squared, y squared. Now everybody's moved, which means we have a 1 in the numerator. Not quite simplified all the way yet. You can see that 4 squared, we can make that even simpler. 4 squared is 16 y squared. That would be your final answer for this expression. So keep track of where you are. Remember your product rules, your power rules. What am I doing with my exponents each time? And let's take a look at the next page.